Well, hello everybody. Just over 6 months ago, I left my full-time career to live a life with more intention and more creativity. I've been spending time on music, on painting, on learning how to read tarot cards, and this channel is all about the adventures and organization that I use to inspire that. And today I specifically wanted to talk about the painting. When I was young, I would draw all the time. And once I got into high school, started taking some art classes, and that's when I started painting. High school art class is a very, very high-level art history and examination of different types of art. That's when you first learn like what expressionism and pop art and abstract and all that are. We would learn a little bit, and then we were expected to make something in that style. And I remember my art teacher very explicitly saying that I was an expressionist painter. At the time, I was very much into comic books and wanted to draw comics. And I think the painting sort of reflected that kind of heavy line pop art aesthetic. I've got a painting back here. This is the oldest painting that I have created that I own. It is on a canvas that I stretched myself. It's kind of weird, kind of on brand for me, kind of comic booky. I can see where they were getting the expressionist part. You know, there's a lot of stuff in this painting that is telling you how to feel. But even back then, there was a lot of this like washy color and a lot of this like kind of sporadic line work. I was never big into precision. I think that's true with most of my art. I think some of it was impatience. Some of it I think was just lack of technical know-how. I tend to be a little bit shaky anyway, and so that sort of like line work that's real choppy and that sort of thing just kind of lends itself to how my hands work. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So I did a bunch of painting, and then in my young 20s, I just sort of stopped. There's basically 3 reasons I stopped. One was painting takes up space, and I didn't have like a gallery or a studio or anything, so the art was just sort of piling up. The second thing is other things were taking up my time. I started playing in bands, and music became the big focus for my creativity. And then the third thing, the saddest thing, I think, is that feeling of, what is this for? I'm still prone to falling into that trap. You know, this thing I'm spending time on, what's it for? We're just raised in this society to be productive. If I am spending time on something, it either needs to accomplish something or make money. And there's so many things that are really worthwhile that aren't for anything other than that. If you go for a run or you go for a hike, you know, what's that for? Your health, sure. But a lot of people just like it. It feels good and it's a nice thing to do. I really like to take photos. I take a lot of pictures, and I'm the primary audience. I'm not publishing them or selling them or anything. And I'm okay with that. But the painting and later the music, you know, if I wasn't making money off of it or performing it in front of people, it's kind of that, you know, if a tree falls in the woods, does anybody hear it kind of a thing. And ultimately it does. And I guess you just have to be okay with the tree hearing its own sound and nobody else hearing it. I played guitar this week, recorded some music, and again, got that feeling of, you know, am I going to play this live? Am I going to release this music? And I'm working real hard on just kind of squashing those thoughts down and just doing it because I like doing it. So back to the painting. I really like street art. Not necessarily graffiti or tagging, but I like when people make art illegally. Some of it's real good, and some of it's just real interesting. I've seen little doodles or tags that you just notice here and there, and they just sort of spark a little bit of whimsy or make you roll your eyes. I think that's great. And I always thought it'd be fun to come up with a little thing that I could do different places real quick, but I always was afraid I didn't want to get arrested. So then I had another thought. What if I just made small paintings and then I could leave them places? You know, certain restaurants or bars, they'll have like a shelf with things on it or a bookshelf, and I could just sort of sneak my art in there. That was real low risk, I thought. And so I started making little paintings. I hadn't painted anything in like 25 years. And the first one I did is just a sunset over the ocean. And it's not photorealistic, but it's sort of based on a memory of a place that I've gone camping. And that's what it looks like. And it's real good. That sort of jaggy line, real rough sort of work like I like to do, when scaled down, translates really well. And I've made a whole bunch of these, like bunches of them. And it turned out I liked them enough that I didn't leave them anywhere. And so they just sit on a shelf, and I get to look at them every once in a while. But then I learned about something called ACEOs. It stands for Artist Cards, Editions, and Originals. Apparently, in the 90s, artists would make little paintings and they would exchange them. They were just called artist cards. And they weren't really something you could buy. It was just something that people would do for each other. And then later, realizing that these were kind of cool, artists started making editions of them, or originals. So editions would be like prints, stickers, things like that. And then the originals obviously are tiny paintings. They're usually the size of a baseball card or a Pokemon card, like 2.5 by 3.5. And some people collect them. They'll look for certain types. They like to do outdoorsy ones or pictures of animals. Some people like to collect certain artists. Everybody's different. And so I started making these things, and I do about 4 a week. I have a pad of really heavy paper, and I can cut 4 of them out of a single sheet. And I just spend a week working on 4 of them. It's hard to see sometimes with the glare on there. This is one I finished this week. It's just sort of a abstract kind of cityscape. I've made a whole bunch of them. And I started listing them on eBay just for like a couple bucks each, and they started selling. I've sold about 6 of them so far. Some of them are bought by the same person over and over. Some of them are one-offs. Whenever I sell one, I've got a little ritual where I print out the envelope, I pack it up, I walk down to the post office, and I drop it off. And like I said, $2 or $3 is all they sell for, so not big money, but it's really cool that like somebody wants my art. Over the last decade, I've been to lots of museums, and the art that I've really gravitated towards, besides the modern stuff, which I just love, is the Impressionist stuff. That late 19th century French Monet adjacent art. And I really love the lack of detail and the lack of kind of heavy lines that the Impressionists have. It's one of those things where when you get up close, it's just a bunch of erratic brush strokes. But if you step back a little bit and you squint your eyes, it looks like you are there. And I would not describe myself as an impressionist, maybe post-impressionist, a little abstract, a little contemporary, but it's super fun. And again, I'm not gonna pay the bills with this sorts of money, but it's nice to know that like I have some pieces of art hanging on somebody's wall in New York. And it's really made me sort of want to get back into the larger scale painting. I wonder, if I was to scale that up, what would it look like? But again, I get that thought of, but what am I gonna do with it? The one thing about these is they're really easy to ship. When you put it in an envelope with the packing list and a thank you card, I feel pretty confident about it not getting messed up. It's pretty thick paper that I do these on, and you just do a prepaid envelope and off they go. And if I did a larger painting, and not like, like large, but like large, I suppose I could ship it, but it'd also be kind of cool to set it up somewhere, like a street fair or a flea market or something. That'd be pretty cool, just having a lot of little paintings, maybe some big paintings. Anyway, that's one of the things I've been doing with my time. It feels pretty good to revisit something that I used to really like doing, and doing it in a way that is really low risk. Doesn't take up a lot of time, doesn't take up a lot of space, really digestible, really small, and it's a lot of fun. I'll let you know if I buy a larger canvas, or if I set up at a street fair or something like that. If you've got questions about ACEOs, or if you're working on something cool, leave me a comment, tell me all about it. If you like this sort of thing, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.